Let's dissect these major stories, especially looking at them coming from the business world. And we have Gamaliel Tanimomo. He is a business analyst. He would be doing that for us this morning. Good morning, Gamaliel.
Thank you for having me. Good morning and good morning to our listeners.
All right, let's shoot straight to the first story, looking at the chief economist at the Economic Commission for Africa, Hanan Moss, is saying that Africa currently accounts for more than half of the world's poor at 54.8%. And of course, she made this comment at the 53rd session of the Conference of African Ministers of Finance. But we know that this may not come as news to a lot of Nigerians, but what exactly do you think we can pick from these statistics?
Okay, so once again, good morning and good morning to our listeners. Data speaks volumes and data do not lie. So that data should not be taken with a pinch of salt. And even leave Africa, come down to Nigeria. Nigeria has 220 million people. And over 70, 80, and according perhaps to World Bank, 80% or 85%.
Okay, Gamaliel, they're giving us some statistics, especially breaking down the data reflecting the number of poor people in Nigeria. Go ahead, Gamaliel. All right, some network issues there, but of course, we're looking at...
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
So if Africa accounts for 55%
of poor people, and indeed we also saw the recent release by the NBS as a National Bureau of Statistics saying that more people have gone to the multidimensionally poor people in Nigeria. Gamaliel, if you can hear me, please go ahead with your response.
I can hear you. So Africa, these conversations should generate a rouse of debate, particularly in ECOWAS. ECOWAS is the Economic Community of West African States, and then we have the African Union. These conversations should be a concern to African leaders because Africa or Africans has no business being poor. We are blessed. We have arable land, we have mineral resources. Nigeria has 34 million arable land, and yet we import billions of rice annually. So the question is, what are we doing? Our blessings have become a burden. So we need to take the challenge and flip the narrative. Thank you.
But looking at this, it's not just projecting, or it's not just assessing the current situation, it's also projecting into the future. For instance, it says that 149 million people in Africa are at risk of falling into poverty this year, 2023. How do you think Nigeria especially can position herself in this, in the, helm of affairs?
Okay, so with AFTA and with our large population, we can be one of the gainers. But the question is all our government policies, are they favorable? Very recently, the World Bank scrapped the ease of doing business in.
Of course, looking at some of the issues surrounding the level of poverty in Nigeria, looking at the statistics, and that's, of course, taking an overview of the level of poverty in Africa. Gamaliel, are you back with us?
Yes, I am with you.
Yes, so I'll let you round off on that before we move on to the next story. Go ahead, please.
Nigeria has a huge population that it can leverage on. And with the right policies, with the right leadership, we can take it to the next level. Thank you.
Well, let's also look at the power sector. There's also statistics here showing that about 75% of electricity consumed in Nigeria comes from diesel and petrol-powered generators. And this latest report is coming from the Society for Planet and Prosperity, and also looking at all of the factors, like saying that 25,000 megawatts of power utilized in Nigeria is from diesel and petrol power generators, while the national electricity grid only supplies less than 5,000 megawatts. In fact, some people will tell you that it is way below 4,000. And that's, of course, appalling, looking at the potential to generate about 12,000 megawatts of electricity in Nigeria. Why aren't we tapping into all of this potential?
Okay, so let me stretch this conversation a little bit. The impact of pollution has not been factored into this statistic.
All right. Gamaliel, I'd like to hear your line of thoughts there, because you seem to be bringing a very interesting perspective into this discourse, especially looking at the fact that there is a lot of gas that we even flare, which we can tap into to generate electricity. And a lot of analysts have also talked about how we can look into renewable energy to boost our current production. Go ahead, Gamaliel.
Over $1 billion annually from gas flaring. The question is, why are we allowing such resource to get to waste? South Africa generates well more than 10,000 megawatts. And for us, a population of 220.
Indeed. South Africa has barely a population of barely 60 million people. Nigeria, with over 200 million people, generates less than 4,000 megawatts. And looking at South Africa generates about 40,000 megawatts of electricity. That's quite a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. So for me, the first thing we should do is let us take power off the concurrent list, or the exclusive list rather. Let us take power. And I think the Ninth Assembly has legislated it that power should be taken off the exclusive list. So once we do that, I'm sure it will open up the sector to private sector, to major players, and I'm sure the narratives will change anytime soon.
When you say it would open it up to the private sector, I'd like to believe that that's away from what we saw in 2003 when it was privatized into when the discos were privatized. Have we begun to see any dividend of that privatization?
We might not have seen it, but big things come in small packages. So we need to take those baby steps. So imagine if we have all states of the federation doing IPP projects. So I can generate power for myself in a state. That means that I am self-sufficient. So if 36 states of the federation, including Abuja, have independent IPP projects, and then they have excess that they can donate to the grid, it will be off in a long time. We can't get immediate dividend. It's going to take a while.
When you say immediate, haven't we, test run this for quite a while, for a long time? 2003 till now is quite some number of years.
It is, but some of these things are not sacrosanct. Government policies are there. The entire value chain of the electricity, this electricity can be sometimes confusing, from distribution to transmission to generation, all of these things. And because government is not a continuum in this part of the world, now, if the
All right, still analyzing the power sector and all of the challenges bedeviling our generation, production, the transmission, and of course distribution. And Gamaliel is right there breaking that down for us. But of course, perhaps if we begin to look at, because some analysts have advised the federal government to go back to the drawing table and review the privatization which was done back then, and begin to see ways by which they can make things better. Gamaliel, go ahead, please.
So, like I said, let us go back to the...
Okay. The network isn't quite friendly this morning, but
we need to double up on that.
Well, let's move on. This is talking about the currency circulation in the economy, and that's amid the nation's Naira redesign policy. The CBN has said that the currency in circulation dropped to 982 billion Naira. That's at the end of February 2023 from 3.3 trillion Naira recorded in October 2022. You'd recall that one of the reasons, or one of the objectives of the CBN to give out or to take in, mop up the currency in circulation was to reduce inflation and to also ensure that there is more rule or control for banks when it comes to managing the money in the circulation. But we still have issues with crowds of customers seen in bank branches and automated teller machines, despite the assumption that all of that will go away after the elections. Gamaliel.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
There has been a dichotomy between the money of the CBN and this now.
Quite unfortunate we are having so much challenges with the network this morning, but of course we will be looking at all of these issues, especially talking about what the CBN has been able to achieve with this monetary policy. They have talked about, encouraging cashless policy, which we know that has been on for a while, even before this recent policy that started in December. Gamaliel, if you can hear me, please go ahead with your analysis.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm saying that there has been a dichotomy between the monetary and the fiscal policies of the CBN. On the one hand, the Naira redesign is meant to reduce inflation. But I suspect that by the time the MBS releases statistics, our GDP might have contracted. How can we use Naira to buy Naira in this 21st century? It just doesn't make sense. So the argument was that it was to prevent vote buying. Well, elections are over. Let them release cash. We run an informal sector, and a lot of businesses are dying because of unavailability of cash. That is my take on this subject.
Okay, we'll see how that pans out, especially as Nigerians are still groaning under the harrowing experience of lack of cash in circulation. Well, the appointment of John Makodia as head of the oil trading arm of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has raised diverse concerns among industry experts and operators. But it also triggered resentment among analysts and operators, though other experts think that there's nothing wrong with the development. But what are your thoughts on the fact that this new appointment, Kodia would now head the NNPC Trading Limited, and that's a subsidiary of the NNPC Limited? What development do you think this would bring to the oil and gas sector?
Well, as an employer of labor, the greatest challenge is the war for talent. So if there is no talent within, I will go without and source for talent. So the question is, are there no competent hands in NNPC Limited that can fill that role? If there is none, then they can go and source for anyone to fill that role. So let us look at it objectively. If he can deliver, let him go ahead. That is it.
So you think the major concern is the fact that he is an expatriate, and perhaps most of these people who are raising concerns are thinking that it should be sourced domestically? Gamaliel? Oh, okay. Well, looking at all of these issues, we hope that this will bring some needed changes. Gamaliel, did you hear my last question?
I didn't get you, please.
Yes, so I'm saying, do you perhaps see from the perspective of those who are raising concerns that why get an expatriate when these can be sourced locally?
Yeah, I just mentioned it. So if we can get local hands to fill that role, then let it be. But if we can't get, let us hire and get the job done. That is what matters. It is results. If he can get me results, I'll bring him on board. So there should be no sentiment in that. But I do not think that we have a paucity of talent.
Okay, so if you don't think we have the paucity of talent, then why did we go out to get this person to head the oil trading arm of the NNPC Limited? And what disadvantages do you think this may pose in the nearest future? Okay, looks like it's not There's no connect between us and Gamaliel right now, but we're still looking at all of these issues. We perhaps may not be able to continue with him, except Gamaliel, can you hear me now?
The NNPC.
Quite sad. Can you hear us? Are you back? Are you back with us now? Gamaliel? All right, we probably would have to end the conversation there. Thank you, Gamaliel Tanmomo, business analyst, for your analysis on the show this morning. Well appreciated. Have a great day. Still to come after the break, the Nigerian Exchange Limited all-share index and its equities market capitalization depreciated further on Monday, March 20, by about 0.05%. We'll focus on this after the break. Stay with us.